All right, yo, everybody. This is another episode of the MindBody Marathon. And today we are going to go through kind of an Olympic review, just talk about the Olympics and what we saw and some of our opinions on it. And today with me on the show is my wife, the beautiful Samua Kormanik. Um, and yeah, so basically, Paris is done. 2024 Olympics is done. And did you get?
Doesn't seem like it's right.
I
I
know.
was so busy because I was, doing 14, 15-hour
Yeah, I
days
was
on
gonna say you
set.
didn't really get to catch
I
much.
didn't get to I saw a few when we were on vacation, then
Yeah.
here and there, but
Yeah, that was at the beginning, and as most of you probably know, the gymnastics and swimming sort of take over at the beginning of the Olympics,
yeah.
and then track and field sort of takes over at the end while those two main events wrap up, and they kind of bring in some other stuff. But yeah, I think obviously the U.S. did great, and I think our medal count. What you were looking it up earlier? What was the medal count?
So, US took first with a tie for gold with China, 40 golds, both
40.
US and China. But US had 126 overall medals, whereas China only had 91. And then Japan comes in third with only 20 gold, so half of the United States and China, and then 45 overall medals.
Hmm.
So
And then what's up? So France, what did they do? They were fifth-ish.
they were fifth. They had 16 gold, 64 overall, so a pretty good number overall. They actually
Yeah.
had more than Japan and Australia. Australia took fourth, which I think is kind of surprising to me, actually.
Yeah, I mean, Australian Federation is big. I mean, I know like swimming is obviously a big sport of theirs. The U.S., Australia, kind of battles or have been real the last couple of Olympic cycles, and I don't even know the medal count on that. I'm told by some of the swimming coaches in the area that swimming seemed a little flat this year. They won, they did good. You know, your Katie Ledeckis of the world did good, and we had some medals there, obviously, but maybe not as sharp. I think actually in LA in 2024. So hold on, all you track and field fans. The bulk of the show is track and field. But I just kind of wanted to talk about some other events and give them their due. But the in 2028 in LA, SoFi Stadium, which is where the Rams and the Chargers play in Los Angeles, that will be turned into an auditorium,
Oh, really?
and that'll be the swimming.
Oh, that's
Will be
cool.
at SoFi
Like
Stadium.
in the middle of the football field?
Yeah, and it's kind of like what they did for the Olympic trials for swimming, where they turned Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, which is where the Colts
I
play.
didn't know that.
They turned that into a swimming pool, but this will be the first time that's an Olympic event will be that large. Because think the swimming arena, I forget the name of the arena in Paris, but I think that swimming arena was about 2 or 20K maybe, and SoFi is about 3 times that,
Wow.
if not 4 times that.
One of the cool
So
things that I like about the Olympics overall is just how, sports in general, I guess, it's like music, right? It's like a universal language.
Mhm.
So when I was one of the days that they had a swimming competition, I don't know which one it was because I wasn't close enough to see, but Rockefeller Center in New York City had actually set up this whole outdoor Olympic mini village thing, and it was free. You could just come in and where the ice skating ring really usually is down bottom, they had 2 or 3 big screens set up that were playing different events that were going on at the same time. And I remember that when I stumbled upon that, and I think I sent you a video of it, and it was just so cool. And it's New York City in the summer, so there was already tourists there from all over the world, and there was some swim competition going on, and it was going back and forth between US and whoever was in second. And there was a lot of people there from the country that was in second at the time. They turned in the pool, and I think the second place one took a lead at that point. And it was just all this cheering from everywhere, every country, the US,
Yeah.
when they took the lead, there was cheering from them. But then when the other country took the lead, a huge group was cheering for them. So I just love that about the Olympics, how
Yeah.
whatever crap is going on in the world, however people are at odds with each other, whatever, it's sports kind
Well,
of brings you together that way.
You know, a lot of the main events, like, let's take swimming and track. You know, if you made a hasty generalization, you're like, what do the Russians or the Chinese or the US, what do they do when they swim or run? It's like, what style do they have? Well, they kind of all have the same style. They all kind of have the same approach. But when you get into team sports, then you start to see the culture of the country come out. Like if you watch World Cup soccer, then you can see the Germans play like the Germans, the Spaniards play like the Spaniards. Like there's very distinct styles on the field and on the pitch, and when it comes with a collaborative thing. But in these individual sports, it's not so much the case, and it's really fascinating, and it kind of breaks down these barriers, and you kind of just fall in love with the athlete from
Yeah.
anywhere, you know?
So that was a cool thing to be there for a little bit and
Yeah, that's
get to
awesome.
experience that.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, so swimming will be pretty awesome in LA. We should expect a pretty phenomenal showing by the US because that stadium is going to be nasty big. It's going to be so fun. And yeah, gymnastics was fun too. I mean, I
Well,
think
yeah, because Brazil came in and won that gold medal. I mean, that's
and
a really
Draji,
big deal. People don't understand, especially Americans, because sports, it's such a big part of this culture here. Like,
yeah.
every
Well, hence the
parent,
medal count.
yeah. And, but it's like every parent, I shouldn't say every parent. There are parents out there that tend to be like more obsessed with their kid's sports and like their kid actually is. And, like we see it, our kids are involved in
Yeah.
sports. And so we see that every
We
team,
know these people.
yeah, there's one or two where, it's like their kid's going to be the next whoever and they're all
Yeah.
in and all of that. And in Brazil, that's not the case at all. In Brazil, it's very, very, very academic heavy. And there's no such thing as playing sports
Yeah.
simultaneously as
You don't
studying.
play sports for your school. Like you have to
Yeah.
join like a academy.
And you kind of have to pick, like, if you really think that you're so gifted that you're going to go pro, it's not like here where a kid can kind of delve into that and have some private coaching and hopefully get a scholarship and maybe, they get whatever. Like in Brazil, you kind of have to choose one or the other. And you have to do that usually before you get to high school. So if you think like, yeah, no, I'm really good and I really want to try to go pro, obviously soccer is a big thing there, but any sport, swimming, gymnastics, you usually have to make a
MMA.
decision. MMA. Although that one I feel like you can probably get into older.
Yeah, well, that one's different though, because that's like kind of their way out, because that's
Yeah.
such an international thing.
But any of those sports that requires you to really delve into them from a young age to be competitive as you go along, usually once you get to middle school, going into high school, then you kind of actually leave school to go train.
Yeah.
And, and your priority is training and school is like a second thought if you even do that.
Well,
And so it's a really big deal
they
that,
kinda touched on that when they were talking about Rebecca Andrade. Is that how
yeah,
you say it?
Andrade.
Andrade, where they were talking about how, like, she was taken from her mom and, like, she had to move to Rio and she, like, pretty much, like, I don't know what age, like 8, 9, 10 or something like that, but basically she wasn't living at home and she had to
But
go
that's
there and
kind of
train.
typical in Brazil too, even for academics though.
Yeah,
Like my siblings lived away from my father in a
yeah.
different city, but
I mean, the towns in Brazil are tiny, and then the big cities are big. They're really, really big, but everything else is tiny around there. So,
yeah,
like,
well, there's just not good quality stuff and other things. So yeah, it's a huge deal that Brazil was medaling and
yeah.
had a gold in something outside of soccer.
And
Um,
Simone and Rebecca definitely had a great relationship, and that was a nice little battle to see those 2 get after it.
yeah,
Um,
and they both kind of hinted that they both might be done.
yeah,
So, but and I also loved. I mentioned to you the soccer meme that came out because it wasn't Rebecca, but it was another Brazilian gymnast that like fell during her routine and smacked her face on the bar and ended up getting a black eye from it. But she just like bounced right back and finished
yeah.
her routine. And so there's of course the memes that came out with the soccer players like, up, a gust of wind comes around and they're on the floor flopping, but here's the gymnast. They're the tough athletes.
No, I know, it's amazing. Maybe in the US, people didn't get those memes, but they were all over, like, your Brazilian feeds.
Yeah, it's my Brazilian feed.
But, yeah, it was like this gymnast had a black eye, and then they were comparing, like, Neymar, who just,
Neymar
like,
holding his knee over nothing, rolling
somebody
on the
brushes
ground.
by him, and he's freaking out. Although he had some legitimate injuries, but
I
we
mean, he
all
did
get
have
the
to have
gist.
surgery, yeah, but not all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was good, but let's get over into track and field. You
Okay.
saw basically none of that, huh?
No, I did see a few of them, and I saw some of the replays. I had to go back and see some of the replays. Obviously,
Which ones did you see?
one of the big ones was the 1500,
Oh,
the
God, thank God
self-coached,
you watched that.
is he self-coached, I heard,
Who?
right?
Hawker?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't actually know.
I don't know, that's the buzz that I heard on set one of the days.
Oh, that
From
yeah.
somebody, but who
I
know
should know that.
but who knows if, actors and whatever know what they're talking about with track and field.
Yeah. Well, that was incredible. That's, I'll go so far to say that the men's 1500 was the race of my lifetime. Um, I think what USA Track
He
did,
wasn't even leading, like, what, like 100, 200 meters
well,
away?
that's usually the case. He kind of bird dogged everybody, but the
But he
what
was, like, far back. Like, I knew he won, but even when I was watching the race, and I'm like, "Really? Is he actually gonna win? How?"
Well, we'll dissect this race a little bit, but, because I have some takes on it, but, um, yeah, so definitely the race of my lifetime, and going into this Olympics, I would say that was the one race I was most excited about. Um, and what's amazing is that from a USA track standpoint, and I've treated about 2/3 of those athletes, maybe 50 to 2/3 of those athletes that were on the team at some point in their career. And, you get invested in them and you kinda learn about their history of injuries and all this sort of stuff and sort of, like
Well, some of them you treated
what it
even U20, so that's kinda cool
well, that's
that
what I'm
you've
saying,
seen
like,
them come through
yeah, at
their
some point in
career.
the careers, I got them. Like Tara Woodhall, like, she was on the U20 team with me in Finland, like, there was a lot that was on that U20 team. Um, I think Gabby was even on it, but yeah. So, but with that being said, I think what's interesting about this Olympics from the track perspective is that we won the most medals, I think you said, since 1984?
Yeah.
The track
Still
did?
not as many because
Yeah,
in
because they won
1984, they
40.
won 40, and I think this year it was 34.
Yeah. So great performance, and it's because we got medals from events like distance. We got, let me think, 5 distance medals on the men's side. We got 1 and 3 in the 15. We got a silver with Rooks in the, steeple, and then, the 5K Grant Fisher, that got the double bronze, and
Yep.
so that's 5. And then a really and anybody listening, I've been critical of our marathoners, and those guys showed up, and they were tough, and we got a 7th and 8th place finish in the marathon on the men's side and a 12th place finish, with Dakota, for the women. And so some phenomenal, distance events were performed.
Well, of course, the biggest one would be the women with Sifan Hassan.
Oh, no, we'll get there, yeah, that's obviously a huge deal.
But
Well,
I just shared
no.
this quote of hers today that I thought was awesome,
Yeah,
where she
okay.
says, "I'm no legend. I'm just some crazy curious person that does everything."
That is
And
a
I love
perfect quote from
it.
her. We'll get to the 15, everybody, because there's a lot of takes. But anybody that has watched and listened to Safan Hassan be interviewed would say that that is, like, definitely her characteristic. She is, like, definitely like a cat, curious like a cat. She's very goofy. She's and she kinda is aloof, like, she just sort of like, "Okay, I'll do it," like, and just kinda, like, doesn't even really think about the consequences. Um, that's sort of the impression that I get just kind of from, like, hearing from people within the industry and just hearing interviews with her. And
Maybe
she
that's her secret, like
I
ignorance is
think
bliss.
I
Like,
think that
let's
is
just not
great.
overthink
She just doesn't
it.
overthink it, and that's what Zatopek did in 1952 when he was the last person to get 3 medals in the 5K, 10K, and marathon.
That's insane.
So 52, that was the last time it happened, and it's different now. I mean, it's definitely more competitive now, obviously. I mean, the East Africans weren't even running in the 50s at that
Uh-huh.
point. So, like,
And that was another
Zat
race that the finish for it was, like,
yeah,
amazing.
but
Like,
it
it kept you on this edge of your seat.
but with Zatopek, so he won the 5K, he won the 10K, and then he debuted in the marathon, and he won the marathon in the 1952 Olympics, I
That's
think in
crazy.
Helsinki. Um, so that was incredible. Now, we've gone this now there people have done the triple, the 5K, 10K, and marathon. But nobody has medaled in all 3 until this Olympics. And so if you watch the 5K and the 10K and the track, she's just inconspicuous. She's just kind of in the race. She's not making any moves. She doesn't present herself at any point, and then she just grinds to a 3rd place finish. And what's interesting about that is you look and you go, "Okay, well, she didn't quite have the kick that you would expect from previous Olympics with her and previous world champs." And that's because we didn't know how good she was in the marathon.
She was obviously eyeing that, I would
I know,
assume.
because she was obviously leaning more into those heavy thresholds and heavy volume work, which drains the kick out a bit out of your legs. Just a basic training theory idea. And, so she just wasn't quite as sharp for the 5 and 10 to challenge Faith and some of those Kenyans, but she was definitely sharp enough to take down that marathon
Oh,
field.
that the finish for
The
that
finish was
race
phenomenal. And
was nail biter for sure.
I encourage anybody to I didn't know the results watching that one, and that was great to watch it, front to back, and I would encourage anybody to watch
Yeah,
the highlights of that women's marathon. That was absolutely
it
fantastic.
really was.
Yeah, very inspiring.
And
Um
that's the other thing that I love about the Olympics, like, especially for this generation, right? Like we have kids this generation. We hear from other people. You hear from so many teachers that you work with, like whether it's because of the COVID stuff, but there's just like, I don't know, like something in their eye is just missing, right? Like
Yeah.
that like gusto and like grind
Just yeah.
and for them to have like such a focus on something like this and to see like, Hawker and Safan and these other athletes just grind it out. Like when you think that like they're done for, they pull some reserve out of wherever and just to kind of see that grit and fight and not like giving up. And I think it's just such a crucial thing for
Yeah.
kids like this generation, the teenagers right now, early 20s, to kind of remember that the human spirit can grind and put up with quite a bit.
Yeah.
And we've all become soft. Life for the most part is pretty cush for all of us now compared to like 1940s, 50s, 60s and things like that. So that's another thing that I love about the Olympics,
Yeah.
just bringing out that human strength.
And I think there's no better race to compare or to say that, they're bringing out the grit and when you think they're done for, and they come back and win than the men's 400. That was unreal. And if nobody watched the men's 400, my boy Quincy Hall, like he it's an unbelievable race to watch because if you just watch him at like 200 meters, you're like he's irrelevant. And at 250, you're like, he literally is like the most strained runner on the track. He's literally grimacing already. And then, the Brit right next to him is just like totally comfortable. And then he just like literally
Pulls it out of nowhere.
he just has this face that's like he just saw a ghost and also like he is like, having the worst bowel movement of his life at the same time. And then he like still pulls it out.
Because I think something must just click. It's like,
Well,
this is it. This is my one chance. Like, I don't
yeah,
know if I'm going to be in the Olympics next time.
but
So it's like, I got to pull it off.
he went right to the podium and he basically was just like, yeah, like I have a lot of grit. Like he just said it. He's like, I ran cross in high school. Like I'm a tough kid. And that was so cool to me to just like one, have him talk about that long sprinter kind of getting that cross mode, just getting tough. And he literally won that race because he was just tougher. I mean, he ran a personal best and he sure looked like it.
Yeah. Well, and the opposite of that would be the women's 400 hurdles. I
Yeah.
don't know how the regular 400 did, but you know, I mean, Sydney is just
Sydney's in a real, yeah.
it's crazy. I mean, and she makes it look so easy. She's like
Well, Sydney's
20, 30 meters in front of people, and it looks like she's jogging.
so everybody, we'll get back to that men's 15. So hang on. But there's so many things to talk about.
There is.
But so my take on the women's 400 hurdles is that I encourage everybody to keep an eye out for for the rest of the season. There's the Diamond League final, and there's some other Diamond League races. I think a fresh Femke Bol going up against from the Netherlands, going up against Sydney in the 400 hurdles. I don't think she could beat her. I don't think that she's that good, but I think she could run 50-point mid and push Sydney to hopefully break 50.
Another record again.
50. And because I heard at some point, I don't know where I heard it, but I just kind of heard it through the ranks that Sydney is capable or she has before actually gone under 50. And it's just a record that she's just kind of waiting to just nab in that 400 hurdles. And I think if she gets there, I think she's going to then jump to the 400 proper and then just take that record and put it in a place that nobody can touch it. Because she's going to put that hurdle in a place that nobody's going to touch it for a while.
Do you think ever?
I think ever,
Eventually?
yeah. I think people will, yeah. I mean, these records get
Eventually.
broken. I mean, Beeman's jump, the long jump of the century, like that eventually got broken. Like things get broken. But I would say, so keep an eye out for the rest of this track season because we might actually see her go even faster because these Diamond League races are great because they don't really require you to have these rounds. And then Femke Bol won't be on that mixed 400 relay, which, she obviously had that great kick that knocked the Americans to the second in the mixed 400 relay. So she's capable of a lot more. That 400 hurdle final, that was great to see Anna get second. I was really pumped for her to kind of just really get after that one. But I would say that the Diamond League final is going to be great for that.
And the women's 4x4.
The women's 4x4 was unreal. Now, here's the thing about my take on the women's 4x4. They don't break that world record.
Yeah. They got an American record though, right?
Right. I'm pretty sure.
They did a record. Pretty sure it was the American record.
Yeah, we can maybe look that up real quick. I don't know if they actually did get an American record. Either way, They didn't get the world record. It's close. I think they actually did get an American record, but they were close to the world record, and that was set in the '80s, by the Soviet Union, which just makes you think if Gabby Thomas, like, Gabby who was on that 400 relay then? 4 by 4, so you had the women was Gabby, um, Shamir, and then Sydney and Alexis. Yeah, that's right. Alexis was on there, and if that combo did not get the world record,
Who
then
will?
those those were so doped up in the '80s, like, that Soviet record is just crazy.
Are there stars next
If
to all of them now?
anybody,
Are there asterisks
um,
next to all those records now?
if, uh if anybody wants to if anybody's like, "What are you talking about?" Like, you should just Google Dramila Krachelikova from the Czech Republic, and that's the women's 800-meter record. So just Google women's 800-meter world record photos, okay? And then you will see one of the most amazing photos of all time. And actually type that in, and so that way you can even see it. Try it. And then, so so that's my take on that 4 by 4 because it's just it's insane that they were able to actually run that fast and still not actually break a record. But this is just an amazing photo. Yeah, there we go. And let's find the image. There we go. That's the image.
Oh, I've seen this before. Yes.
This is insane.
That is insane.
Yes, people should look this up. Dramila Krachelikova. I think I'm saying that fairly right. We're just kind of like, look it up. The photo is unbelievable.
She either has the same health issue that the
And it's not Caster.
boxer lady, this Olympics
Oh,
controversy
yeah.
thing happened, or yeah, that was definitely
Yeah,
a
and
lot of
there's a lot of
steroids.
before and after photos of these people from the I mean, the '80s was a weird time for the Soviets and because they would do things like, they would have babies and they would force growth hormones at certain times. They would do just some
I love
shady
this
stuff.
headline right here. Tracks most resilient, and then in parentheses,
Suspect.
and suspect record.
It's
is in
literally the women's
danger.
800. If anybody is suspect about any event, it's the women's 4 by 4 the women's 800. These are records that are just disgusting. So, but yeah, let's go back to the men's 15. All right, let's talk about the race of the century.
This is how most of our conversations at home go, and it's all because of me. 'cause
And we
my
really
brain
never get
just
to any
gets
conclusions
everywhere.
because then a day will go by and then the next day we text each other like we never came to a conclusion on this. So Cole Hocker gets first, unbelievable, and Yard Naguse gets third, and um, couldn't be happier for those guys. I thought we would get a medal out of it. I didn't think we would win. I thought we would get a medal. I thought the combination of Jakob and Kerr were just too strong to just suspect that we would get an American in front of one of those guys. So I thought we'd sneak in on a silver, we'd sneak in on a bronze or something like that. That's what I thought would happen. Um, so that was on a Tuesday, that race. So that Monday, I saw 4 um, former or current professional middle distance runners, and I asked them what their opinions were. 2 of them were previous Olympians, and they all shot called it. They all said Jakob's going to have the lead into the 100. He's going to push out the lane 2 to try to get Kerr to push out, which is exactly what happened. And then if he pushes out too much and he leaves the rail open, they got to be concerned about Hocker. So that's what they all said. But they all kind of said, yeah, it's kind of Jakob Kerr. But one guy, Colby Alexander, who we had him on, he was like, no, I'm putting it into the universe. Hawker's winning, and he like bet it and everything.
Oh, I love it.
And he obviously won because it was a 30-1 odds. That shows you how much of a favorite. And this is the crazy thing is that Hawker was the Olympic trials champ, and in that race, like he had one of the better PRs, and it's crazy that he was a 30-1 odd on that.
Wow.
So that just shows you like the dominance of Jakob and Kerr right now, and that he was able to crack that code. And it's exactly what happened. So you watch that last 200 meters, as you mentioned, he's back. Yard's there. Yard was pushing. Yard literally said or Naguse, he literally said in an interview that he was just pushing because he knew that Hocker was with him and he had to keep them together. So he like literally had this like team mindset going into that last 100, and he was pushing right up against him. Hocker creeps in a little bit on the inside, and then obviously Jakob was leading, and then Jakob kind of stays in lane 1. Hocker thought he was opening up, kind of brushed into him, didn't get that opening, slowed him down, which I think is about equivalent to a quarter, if not a half second. And then exactly what everybody said. Kerr was coming on the outside strong. Kerr starting to take the lead. Jakob's pulling over to push him out. And the next thing you know, opens up for Hocker and one. And then Naguse just grabs Jakob at the end. And Darnier gets Kerr as well. So we almost went 1-2 in that thing, had the race been another 10 meters. And so
It was
unbelievable, unbelievable.
insane.
I mean, I can't tell you the number of patients. Almost every patient I saw last week was just like, that's the race. That was it. That was like the race of the century. It was amazing. And even getting onto like sets of shows and things like that
Yeah,
and
they were being
transcended.
talked about, yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, you know, like I said, we got 5 distance medals on the men's side, and we'll talk about the 5K and 10K, and it's cracking the code. I mean, the East African dominance is real in distance running. And you look at that final in that men's 15, and those Kenyans were out the back quick. Um, it's like we just in the area at University of Akron, they just hired a Kenyan coach, and they want to get more Kenyans in, and it's like, why? I mean, American distance running right now is spot on. Like we're like up there. I mean, that's legitimate. Like that we were able to compete on those all those different events.
I feel
And
like a month ago you were saying something different.
I was saying that about the true distance. I mean, my marathoners out there,
Do
like
you feel like they proved themselves to you, like, through this
I don't think
Olympics?
I was ever really hating on the track world,
Okay. Just
but
the distance.
just the true
The
distance,
yeah.
the marathons, half and up. But, if you think about it though, if you were Kerr and Jakob, why would you be concerned about a Hocker and a Goose? I mean, they really PR'd by 3 seconds. I mean, you didn't think that they can run in the 3:27, so you're like, "We're just gonna run the legs out of them. The race is gonna be so fast, the rounds and everything." And it's unreal. And my opinion is that I think Cole is there, and I think if we get like a Diamond League final or a race where he's fresh and he doesn't have quite the rounds, and he doesn't have that conflict in that last 100 that kind of knocks him back a little bit. I mean, I think he could get in the 326, and I think one of these guys, if they all just if this crew, you know, um, of all the top finishers in that men's 15, if they got together and they were like, let's just get after it and set a world record and get under 326 flat, which is a world record. So they're about a second and a half off the world record at the Olympics, and they set obviously an Olympic record.
You think they'll do it by the end of the
And that's the
season?
thing. I think it can happen. I think everybody's just like right there. And I'm not sure if Hawker's the guy, but I think if they all just got together and just went bananas and just got a race that just took it out nasty hard.
What's, like, the mindset for these athletes, though? Because like, they've been grinding and just mentally and emotionally, I'm sure, like, just draining themselves, right, through the Olympic trials. Because in the US, that's, like, probably more competitive than some of the
Yeah, but
Olympics.
if you start a season and you believed in yourself enough to get an Olympic medal, you kind of drive by the trials.
Right, but I was
So
more
it's
gonna
not
go with
quite
the
the
point of, like, these like, like, if you already met like, even Hawker, like, if he already medaled the gold that mostly he was being bet 30-1 against to even win, it's like, is he really still gonna have all of that
well,
reserve
it's
to go
the
into diamond leagues and try to
yeah.
get a
I mean,
new
it's the
PR
it's
and
it's
all
the
of
same
that?
thing, right? It's like
Or do you
it's
just
the
kinda, like,
imposter
coast?
syndrome.
Do you just feel like, "Oh,
Wow.
man, I got a gold, I'm
Because you're
exhausted,"
the same person that grinded to get to a gold medal, so you don't have that mindset. Like, you can't find that part of you.
but there's no, like, just like, for me, like
You coast in the off season because you need to have your valleys to have your peaks, as I always say, and
yeah.
you can't plateau in a season, and you're never gonna get to these extreme highs if you don't have your valleys, if you don't drop back. If anybody remembers our episodes with Clayton or Katie Moon, it's like that's what they talk about. They talk about, like, you definitely on the off seasons, you embrace the off season.
It just to me mentally, it seems like the pinnacle would be the Olympics, and then, like, you just gave everything in your reserves
Yeah, but
and
it's
your body and your mental and emotional, like, needs to just, like, recharge after
no,
that, and I
it's
can't
but
picture being ready to
it's
go
a
again.
different style, though. It's a different style to time trial a race and to just, like, let it fly. Like, how fast can you drive? It's not about, like, driving a course, it's just, like, literally how fast can you go? It's a different intrigue, and to have that kind of speed and to be that fit, it's like, that would be so intriguing to head into another race to just see how far you can take it, and it's
Yeah.
just it's a frenzy. Um, yeah, so I think we can potentially, later this year, yeah, potentially
That'd
see a world
be
record in the men's 15.
that'll be cool.
Yeah, and because all those guys were super fit, and Jakob just gives up. Jakob is like an all or none guy. He just gave up. Like he realized he wasn't going to outkick any of those guys. They were blown right by him. He couldn't apply the same strength. And he ends up going on and winning the 5K, and he won the 5K in a very controlled fashion as well. So he's definitely fit. It just he didn't look quite as sharp to be able to kick with Kerr there. And kicking in the 5K and kicking in the 15 are two different conversations. So Jakob's fine. I think he's fit. I think he'll apply a lot of pressure. I mean, he obviously was fit. I mean, he was darn near pushing that race like 95% of it,
Yeah.
98% of that race he was leading. So it's he's obviously fit.
Now, what do you think? Have you heard more details about what happened with Kipchoge in the marathon?
No, I don't actually know. Can you look that up? I actually don't even know what happened with him.
I know he dropped out. I ruined that for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't know that what had actually happened. But
He was like watching the
Kipchoge,
race, and I didn't realize he hadn't heard. I mean, I don't know how he worked all day or whatever. All the interactions you had, nobody mentioned to him
no,
that
I
he had
I
dropped
ran a
out.
race. It was Saturday.
Oh,
I
that's
ran
right.
the Akron 5K, and then I realized
And then I come
it,
home and I'm like, oh yeah, he drops out at such
and I
and
didn't
such
know that.
distance.
So she ruined it for me. But I mean, I honestly for with Kipchoge, I mean, he is he's a time trialist. Like, it's and he's not a hill guy. He's not a challenging course guy. He's
Oh, Kipchoge just needed you.
what happened?
Apparently, he had a back injury.
Ooh, get me over there, man.
Seriously.
But yeah, no, I eventually
It's the
we'll get
first
to Kenya.
DNF of his merit. That's not accurate because didn't he drop out of Boston?
No, he didn't drop out of Boston, but that was the point I was going to make
Oh,
is when we went and watched him at Boston a couple years ago, he had a quad kind of went on him and he slowed down. So he gets a little dinged up on those hills. He is
yeah.
older too.
So it says that a back injury forced him to drop out of the Olympic marathon, and it's his first DNF of his marathon career. And he dropped off in the first half of the race, but pushed on to the 31 kilometers before stepping off the course with further physical pain in his waist.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Aw. He's still the greatest or amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
and not even as a runner, he is just a great person.
Yeah.
The way he
No,
presents himself and talks.
It's the thing about all these people, man. They're just and when you really get in on it and you learn about their stories, and I think that's what the American media can be a little annoying sometimes with the Olympics, and I think it was a bit annoying with the whole Snoop Dogg thing, and I think it got a little bit
That
carnival,
was confusing. I
a
was
little
just more like,
carnival.
how did that happen?
But I feel like
Where did it
it's
come
just
from?
like how they bring out the stories and how they bring out the struggles. That's what people need to hear.
Yeah.
Because it's not all yellow brick road the whole way there. It's just not.
I was looking forward to seeing what Sha'Carri had this Olympics, because it's like she had that whole mess go on last time, didn't make the team because of just dumb,
Yeah.
immature situations. And it's like, oh, I really want to see her succeed. I want to see
Yeah.
her be able to come back.
I was glad
and
she
get
got
her
a
stuff
gold
together.
in that
Yes.
4x1. I was happy she
Did you see
secured that one.
the clip of her
Looking over?
Yeah,
Oh, I saw the
that
race
was
live.
like so perfect.
We saw the race live right before we recorded an episode.
Oh, nice.
And it was just phenomenal.
So I was that makes me happy for her. It's like good. Like hopefully
Yeah.
she can build off of that and continue to
Yeah, I don't think
move
anybody
forward
saw
in
that St.
life.
Lucia girl running that fast. I mean, she just really came out of it. And
Yeah.
I mean, she literally looks like Usain Bolt when she runs. Like she has the same style, same size, same build. Like
Is he
pretty
coaching
phenomenal.
her?
No, but yeah, she trains in Austin actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Because he
Yeah.
does have a training thing in Jamaica.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but let's go into the men's 5K and 10K. So Grant Fisher. Grant's probably the smartest guy on the track team, either him or Kenneth Rooks, the steeplechase guy that got second. And Grant went to Stanford. He's a computer science, mechanical engineer guy. He's got a master's in, I think, one of those two. Smartest guy, obviously, in all the races he's in, and he ran the race smart. Like he literally ran the races super smart. If you watch him, he just goes right to the front, but not the front. Hangs out number 2, number 3, number 4, just kind of floats all in that positions pretty much the whole race. He had a little stumble kind of late in the 10K when the Ethiopians were starting to get a little concerned because Cheptegei was kind of there, the Ugandan, and they were mostly concerned about him. And he recovered from the stumble well, and he just kind of mentally hung in there, and not at any point did he look overwhelmed? Did he look tired? Did he look fatigued? In the 5K, kind of late in the 5K, when they started their early kick, like 600 out, he drops back a bit and then finds his way back up, about 200 left. And then with 100 left, he obviously kicks a lot of people down and gets a medal. So and gets bronze there. But I think that that was a very important race for most Americans to watch. I think the men's 10K was the unbelievable event where he cracked the Kenyan code or he cracked the East African code. He was up against the Ethiopians, the Kenyans, the Ugandans, and they are very aggressive. They're very violent. They're very chaotic racers. And if you watch Grant and you watch Nico kind of, Nico Young in 10K definitely didn't have a very composed look later in the race, but he ran well. But if you watch Grant, I mean, he is calm waters. And you just watch the style of the Kenyans and the style of the Ethiopians and the Ugandans, and they're very chaotic and aggressive and bold, and which is fun to watch. It's a great event for them. But Grant was just calm waters, and it was psychologically such a cool event to see.
Do you think that, like his strategy and like obviously he's a smart, bright guy is like kind of what gave him the edge over the Ethiopians, a
Yeah,
little bit of like the mental side of it?
I think if you watch him in the last Olympics and a lot of his international events over the last 4 years, I think he was fourth in the last Olympics in either the 5 or the 10. Um, if you watch what he did different this time, it's that he has inserted himself into the race quick, and he just behaved like he belonged there. Like, it's like when you go to a nightclub, you're like, behave like you belong there kind of thing. And he's like walks right in and he gets right through the bouncer and he's like right up in that race and he's just not moving. And he's just, everything crazy is happening around him and he just stays in the same position and he just keeps on with his mindset and he just knows it's going to come to that last 200, last 100, and he just asserts his will into the race, and it's a beautiful thing to watch.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so he runs an amazing time as well doing that.
I did not know this, but I also heard this past couple weeks with the Olympics that Gabby Thomas is a Harvard grad and medical doctor, I believe.
Oh, was she an actual doctor? I know she was going to medical school,
Yeah,
but
I don't know. I think they said the
oh,
report
wow.
that I saw, like she's graduated and,
Yeah,
she's looking to she's been working at like a
philanthropic.
philanthropic
Mhm.
clinic,
That's cool.
like serving people that don't have
Yeah,
insurance and things like that.
could she be any more amazing of a person?
Right? She's beautiful. So
She's
yeah, everything
beautiful,
about
she's,
her.
like, super fast,
Hopefully she's really nice. I
and
don't
she
know.
is.
I've
I've
never
not
like
formally talked to her, but I've been around conversations with her. She's nice. Everybody has a great impression of her,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, to be willing to take care of people's health for free, I think you have to
No,
be
it's
obviously that mindset of caring for people. So
yeah.
yeah, so
I
that's good to hear
that's
too.
that's awesome to hear, and she straight just won that 200. She just went out there and just didn't have any reserves, and that was beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
So,
And then men's 100.
the
That
men's
was a
100,
crazy finish.
that to me, um, was probably the second most exciting race of this Olympics that I was, most excited for heading into it. The men's 15 was the race. The men's 100 was probably the second most exciting race I was interested in. Um, and those 2 races just didn't disappoint. I feel like they were the 2 races of the whole Olympics. They were the 2 best races of the whole Olympics. The men's 100, I mean, you obviously have just a battle of personalities. You have Fred Curley, who's just like a
That
grinder
seems
of a
to
guy.
always be the case with that race because it was
It's
the
just
same way
it's
when it was Usain and
Gatlin and all
yes,
that, yeah,
like
and
they're just all
Coleman.
big personalities. Like it
Yeah.
seems like
Well, there's
that's
always
always
a
a thing.
personality that sort of like wins the room, and that's, used to historically be Usain Bolt, and then his famous pose and everything, and then you have like, Noah Lyles coming out with his training cards and his just uniqueness, and my take on Lyles is, and I have actually talked to Lyles, and my take on him is he gets a bad rap. The media, he's not cocky, he's confident, and there is a drastic difference. Deion Sanders is sort of the same way, and he gets a bad rap by the media. He's just a confident person, and if you're playing a game of pool, a checkers, if handstand challenge, anything with him, he's literally just going to be like Jordan. He's going to be like, "No, I'm going to beat you," and he's like just confident, but he's not like cocky about it. He's actually really kind and awesome person. Like, the conversation that I had with him a couple years ago, he literally was asking me questions about where I was eating lunch and what I was doing that day. Like, I mean, he's the celebrity and he's just like, it's a two-way conversation. And he's not like, Shakari kind of walks into a room and she sort of just keeps to herself and sort of takes over the room. And Noah's like talking to everybody and he's just friendly with everybody. And so I think he gets a really bad rap.
I think anybody that carries around trading cards has to be that kind of
He's just a he's just a
personality.
goofy, funny guy, and I love Noah to death, and I love that he won that race. I don't know the Jamaican Thompson or anything, but,
But
I
that
was
was such I mean, that
it
was
was and
literally a photo
so
finish.
obviously, if you've never seen the race, you should go back and watch it. The men's 100 final, it's unbelievable, and it's literally the most photo of photo races,
Yes.
0.005, and, his nose basically, right? Won the race,
I mean,
and
for
look.
coaches, for every coach that wants to tell kids, like, that lean at the end is where it's at. Like, that is the race
Well,
that
and
you
so the
always
thing
bring
is,
that up.
yeah, the lean at the end, and that's the thing is, like, he got out of the blocks late. He looked crappy in the first third of the race. Um, he had some his acceleration was just really bad. In the middle of the race, he was good, and then the late phase of the race, he won just the late phase of the race, and so after I saw that 100 finish, I thought, "Oh, man, he's untouchable in the 200." And I think that COVID really got him in the 200. I think that that was a real thing that really set him back, and I think a lot of people were, um, taken aback by when he came out for the presentation of the 200 because that's his main event. Like, he obviously wanted to be called the fastest man in the world, and now he has that for the 100, but he hit the 200 is his bread and butter, and that's what he was initially successful in, and, he was the Olympic champ, and so that's the thing, he felt like he needed to kinda represent. And he comes out in sort of, bombastic fashion and going crazy and jumping around, and obviously he gets 3rd. Kung Fu Kenny gets him in that one, and he
Kung
loses
Fu
to
Kenny.
Debogo, the Botswanan. And so I think COVID really affected him in that race. I think it took away his final little twitchiness in the race where you need that last little bit in that 200. It's a bit more of an aerobic race, obviously, because you're running 100 farther. Like, you do get more out of
Did he
breath.
just recently have COVID? Is that what you
He
keep
had COVID
saying?
heading into it. Yeah, he
Oh.
was diagnosed with COVID heading into the final.
Oh, I'm surprised they let him still
The
run.
the media didn't really know so much. They knew after, and, they were concerned about
At
him.
first, I thought you meant, like,
No.
actual COVID when it was
No,
happening,
no,
but I'm
no,
like,
no.
"Wait, that was the
He
last
had COVID
Olympics."
at the
Okay.
before the 200, between the 100 and the 200, he got COVID.
Oh,
And,
well, that's amazing that he still got
so if you watch
bronze.
right, I agree, and most people are like, "Oh, it shouldn't affect your sprints." It affects you, like, it just does. Like, I mean, it's a disease. I mean, it's definitely a diagnosis. And, but if you watch the 200 final and, the 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2 were celebrating and he's on the track and, he's just kinda sitting there. Well, Amadeus Mason, the USATF medical guy, comes over, and Amadeus is amazing. He's the best there is, and he comes over and he's kinda asking him some questions, checking his pulse and everything, and then he gets really concerned, and then he calls over further attention, and Amadeus is about as cool as a cucumber, as cool as they come, and for him to get surprised and that's the thing that I took away, it's because I know Amadeus, and he literally was like, "Dude, come over here," like, so I think he really was struggling. I think his HRV was off. I think he probably had still an accelerated heart rate after that race. I mean, he definitely it was a concerning thing. And so kudos to Noah for, still
Grinding
hanging
that
in, grinding it out
going
and just
back
get
to that grit that the sport
100%.
brings out that I like to
Um,
see.
God, it would have been nice to see Kung Fu Kenny win a gold though.
Oh, why is he called
He
Kung Fu
wears the white
Kenny?
headband. Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes,
Kenny
yeah.
Bednera. But in that 4 by
Is that
1,
an official nickname for him, or is that your nickname for him?
it's a USATF nickname
Okay.
for him, and, I would say that that 4 by 1 was really disappointing for USATF. The women's 4 by 1 was phenomenal. We alluded to that earlier with Sha'Carri bringing in the gold, unbelievable. But the men's 4 by 1, I was really sad to see that they couldn't get the exchanges down. There's obviously been a ton of drama with that over the years.
Well, because they don't even know the team until they're there,
Well, they
right?
it's
Isn't that
not
still
even
a thing? Like, they don't get to really practice
that's
and
that's the conversations that's around it, and I think that's one of the advantages of USA Track is that we wait to the last minute to select our team in a true trials fashion. But the disadvantage is we don't get a lot of time to prep and practice. But there was also some changing of the guard because last minute Noah was not in the 4 by 1. And so that switched things around. And then, it's not an easy task to get, Christian Coleman runs the fastest curve in history. He literally ran the fastest opening curve in history.
well,
And Kenny left a little early, but not only did he well, I don't wanna say he left early, he just left a little too quick. Like, he left kind of at the right time-ish, but he was through the exchange zone too quick. So Christian, having run the fastest 100 turn of his of any existence, literally couldn't get to him in time because he was too fast out of the exchange zone, and he basically had to stop, grab the baton, and they kinda bumped into each other, and then next thing you know, they would have been flagged anyways because he was out of the exchange zone during the so that
I
was
mean, that's such a
unfortunate.
big deal because, like, even at high school level, like, with, Joelle's, like, team, like,
Yeah.
they switched, like and they had been running the same 4 girls, but they just switched the order of who's running where, which then changes who's handing off to
Yeah.
who, and, people, like, they're just not used to it, their step
I
count's
mean, you think, like,
different,
you're
all
just getting
that.
a baton, it should be easy. No, it's not because there's speed involved. There's just even in the 4 by 4, like, where you were seeing them come all the way from 1 lap, and then you're seeing them come down the 100, and you kinda know when it's coming, like, you and it's definitely, kind of that standing open start, not like the closed start or the facing away start like in the 100 where you're not looking at the actual guy or gal. The even in the 4 by 4 when they're coming in hot, like, it's hard to get the baton, like, so it's a
It's
real
just so
thing.
fast. I mean, at that especially how fast they're running at their level, it
Yeah,
really I mean, I know it sounds
like, the fastest on the
so
turn.
redundant, but that's
So,
so
Kenny
fast.
probably saw Coleman and was like,
Oh, shoot.
"Holy crap. He's running the fastest turn anybody's ever seen. I gotta go. I gotta go." And he probably panicked a little,
Yeah.
and it just was unfortunate. So, well, I kinda feel like this was a good episode. I feel like we touched on a lot of the great events.
It's crazy how much just track and field
Yeah.
carries the Olympics. We didn't even talk about Katie's, silver medal.
Oh my gosh, how can we not talk about that? So, that so let's talk about the pole vaults. So
And Mondo.
Katie gets silver. We'll get to that. Katie gets silver, and Nina wins from Australia wins it. Uh, we had Katie on the podcast, and she had mentioned her Achilles injury. You see her late in that in her run ups, late in the final, and they had a big final. They had more. They had accepted more to the final, so the rotations were weird. Um, but you saw her running up, and it's like and if you kinda pull up those videos side by side to her in Tokyo, and she's just a smidge off, she's just not quite as strong in that runway, and she had alluded to with us that she all the visualization and everything had been working, and she was able to get over the bar and do all that sort of stuff at decent heights, but you just need that last little bit of strength down the runway to get over those high bars, and she just didn't have it. So that's why Nina took the gold. Still very impressive. We thought for a minute there they're going to tie again,
Yeah.
but Nina pulled it out. So, but that was impressive. And then Mondo, yeah, that's crazy. I have partied with Mondo before. I party. Mondo is a very intense guy. He's a very funny
Can't
guy.
tell.
He is he is very cocky. Mondo is cocky. Mondo is pole vault royalty. He's come from a pole vault family. Um, so this is the men's pole vault champion, and he jumps for Sweden, even though he's
He
from
should be
Louisiana.
jumping for
Should be
the
from the
US.
U.S. He had a
Little bit of drama there.
his family, years ago when he was still U20, got into a little spat with USATF, and then they jumped for Sweden now, and
Which
which
probably
is
means that he won the spat
which
against
probably means
USA
that.
to
But what's
How
interesting
many
about
more,
Mondo
world records do you think he's gonna keep breaking?
well, here's the thing. So I heard I don't so this is kind of what I heard through the ranks is that years ago, before like even Tokyo, he jumped an insane height in practice. Like so like in pole vault, it's like the high jump. You have to like you're marking your bar. So your bar goes up and then you have to clear it. But in the long jump, you just jump as far as you can and like that could win you worlds or the Olympics, and, like, it could just be one jump changes your life. But say on pole vault, you say you have a perfect run up, a perfect height, a perfect everything, and you clear the bar, but, like, say the bar's low. Well, then you kinda wasted it actually.
Yeah, because
So
you
that's
don't
why
know
pole
how
vault's
much
like
traffic you're
poker. You
gonna
have to kinda know what's in your hand, you know? Yeah, so the run-ups matter and the feelings matter, and so you have to kinda just parse it out. Well, with Mondo in practice, I think this was the it was the previous world record. At one point, they said he jumped well over a foot over that world record in
That's
practice.
crazy.
And so then they were basically just like, all right, well,
Let's just keep
let's
chipping away
chip
at it.
away at it and just keep getting those payouts and breaking the world record. And, he's just going to keep doing because if you watch him in the Olympics, he doesn't take it to because you can take it to failure, meaning like you can take it to points where you keep hitting the bar and then you get all your fouls. And then so he could keep going up if he wants. But he hits a world record and he just drops the bar
Can
or
you
drops
blame
the
him
pole.
though? I mean, like, he probably
It
doesn't want to injured and
Yeah,
I
exactly. And
mean,
that's I agree with it, but he's just like mic dropping every time he does it. Like he gets up and you watch the energy. I mean, he has so much more in him. Like you watch him go over to the stands and he is so intense. So watch the men's pole vault final, watch his final 2 jumps, and you're like, yeah, that guy's got another couple inches in that world record. Like, no question. So we will see Mondo for a while. Now, my take on Mondo too is that he has the perfect body. He's been pole vaulting from a very young age. He's super strong. He's super fast. He's a lot faster than you think he is. I don't know his 100 PR, but it's quick. It's shockingly quick. He's actually fast. But what makes him amazing is his back. So I'm going to turn to the side for the camera. He he has an arched back. So if you watch him from the side, his back is super stiff and the T-spine. So that way when he's running down the runway and he hits with the pole, his back is so rigid it locks him into place and he can just send all that force right through onto the pole. It's it's amazing. He literally has like the perfect back for pole vault. And
so is
hence
that from him like starting so young or
it
is that just like
probably a combo of the two. I would imagine like
that's just
yes,
how his body's designed?
he probably might have had a bit of Scheuermann's, which is kind of a fancy diagnosis for when you grow too quick, your thoracic vertebra or your mid back vertebrae sort of collapse on themselves. Dr. Matt's got that. And mixed in with, he's been pole vaulting forever. So his body's like, okay, well, if he's going to keep doing this, let's stiffen up the mid back even more. So it's kind of an amazing thing. But yeah, the pole vaults we definitely needed to hit because that was phenomenal. The women's long jump, love Tara. She won the long jump. She was on my U20 team, like I said, and she's great. So yeah, with a lot of great performances from USATF.
Now, one thing I didn't hear about, I
Oh,
heard
wait. We have to talk about this.
oh geez, what?
All right. So men's shot put.
Oh,
So Krauser, unbelievable. First ever to win 3 golds in that in a row. Krauser wins 3 golds in the shot put. Comes back from injury. He's self-coached. And I know for a fact he's self-coached. And he's unbelievable. So Krauser is crazy.
you have to look up whether or not Hawker is self-coached.
Yeah. Joe Kovacs gets silver. And what's crazy about the shot put is it started to rain halfway, maybe 2/3 through it. And Krauser had already thrown a gold medal throw. Okay, so that's fine. The Jamaican had thrown far, and Krauser was kind of not throwing well. And our American threw decently well, the third guy. But Krauser was kind of not throwing well. It started to rain, which made the pit a little slippery, which then made it harder for the taller throwers, the Jamaican and the other American, taller throwers to handle that. Joe, being shorter and a little bit more compact, like started smiling because he's like, dude, all right, all I got to do is just throw well and just knock one of these guys off the podium and I'm in. And that he did on his last throw. That's an incredible moment. And people should go back and watch. He trains down at Ohio State. And Joe Kovacs gets a silver medal off of a brilliant tack late in the shot put, changes his form a smidge, spins a little different because the pits or the ring is wet and he just gets after it and that
That's
was
awesome.
incredible. And what's amazing about those guys in the shot put is that they are throwing, if you look at the top 20 shot put throws of all time, I mean, I think those two guys have 18 of them. It's like unreal.
Wow.
So we're in the golden era of shot put and those two guys couldn't be happier for them to just seal it. And that's probably the last we're going to see of those two in that event for the Olympics. I don't know if they're going to swing it all the way to LA.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of athletes might try, right? Like, if
Yeah. I
they're
mean, it's on home
somewhat
soil.
okay, right, just to kinda get that little boost, but so right after the trials, there was a lot of talk about there was I don't know about how much, but there was some headlines and talk about Lolo Jones because she's like the only 40 plus athlete, I think, to make like in the Olympic team for the hurdles.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
didn't hear anything about her at all through the Olympics. So what happened? Do you know?
Oh, no,
Anything?
no, she's a previous Olympian.
No, I thought she like
No,
made it through. She
I
came
don't know.
back and like qualified for something,
You
I
gotta look that
thought.
up. I don't know.
Like there was a headline because I
Yeah.
remember thinking like, wow, like look at Lolo Jones.
Yeah, I don't that's not
No,
a
I
thing I
know.
knew
I
about.
remember her when she was, but there was like all these little headlines about
Yeah.
her.
So she gets a lot of her stuff through, like, Facebook and socials and
Yes.
Instagram, and so, um, maybe she kinda ran into one of those headlines.
Yeah. See, 41-year-old Lolo Jones competes at Fifth Olympics.
But okay, I didn't know that. So what event?
I think it was some hurdle, maybe. Oh, geez. I don't know. I can't
Yeah, I
find.
don't
All
know.
right, we'll
Like,
have to
yeah, we're
come
gonna
back
drive by
and
that one.
edit on
So,
that one because it's only YouTube's for some reason.
yeah, that's not this one. But,
No, it is this one.
okay, I don't I don't know what to tell you. I don't have
We'll have to find that headline. If anybody knows, you can comment or email
Yeah.
us on what happened with
I don't have
Lolo
no take
Jones.
on it because I didn't even know that was the thing.
Yeah, because these were just from a month ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's it would be incredible. I know there was an equestrian lady that competed in 7 Olympics.
Um,
So that's pretty awesome.
her Instagram profile says, "I'm the Charles Barkley of the Olympics."
Oh my god.
So,
Yeah. All right, well, thank you everybody for another great episode. Do you have any last tidbits?
yay, team from Ohio, 24 athletes. Although I don't know how much valid that list is because some of them is just because like they went to school here
Yeah.
or, so they're not like really from Ohio, but Ohio does breed quite a
Yeah,
good breed of athletes.
I know. Yeah, we that's mentioned quite often here is
Something
that
in the water.
Yeah, there's some crazy
Something about
statistic.
that dirty lake water.
There's some crazy, yeah, the Lake Erie monster. There's a crazy statistic out there that the Ohio State high school track meet, I think almost every time over the last like 40 years or something like that, almost every time it's gone has had a future Olympian compete
Oh,
in
you
it.
mean like OHSAA?
Yeah, like
Yeah, yeah.
Ohio high school state
Yeah, yeah.
track meet
Somebody should look that up for us too,
has like a
how
running
accurate that
tact on
is.
almost every single year has a future Olympian competing in that year.
That's awesome.
So it's pretty cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. And we'll be back again next week with a great episode with the great Connie Gardner talking about ultra marathons. Thank you.